love how you just jumped right into the carnivore diet. But again, knowing you, knowing how studious you are and like how you want to learn and dig into the weeds in a lot of things, what was it like to, I guess, start eating this way and then go back and not only learn about a carnivore diet and why it's kind of how we evolved and everything, but also writing about it. You have an amazing blog post, really reminds me of one of my absolute favorite people to talk to in this entire world, which is Dr. Mickey Bendor, who talks about why we evolved as, carnivores. I love chatting with him, and your blog reminds me a lot of his style. So if somebody were to ask you if they were open to learn about what you were, why you're eating the way you're eating, scientifically or evolutionarily, how would you explain it to somebody that this is actually the oldest human diet and is not a fad? It's not this short-term thing that you just did for 5 years, to help you with psoriasis, for example.
That's a big question.
Kind of is.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's all good. And thank you for the compliment. I mean, Mickey Bendor is a great writer.
Amazing.
And good scientist. Yeah, I mean, I am the first one to admit that we don't know everything about the carnivore diet. And more generally speaking, we don't know everything about what human bodies need in terms of diet. We just don't. And a lot of it is research that is still evolving. But we do know that humans had to survive the Ice Age somehow. And we do know that different indigenous populations like the Inuits in the north, or the Hadza in Africa, they do and did for a long time survive almost solely or completely just on animal products. And there is a lot, I mean, nowadays, I guess, especially if you talk to vegans, some people will argue that humans are herbivores, which, I mean, there's just so many things that go into that equation. But I think most people would probably argue for omnivores. But even almost all omnivore animals in the world heavily lean towards one side. They either primarily live on meat and animal products or plants. There are very few animals that would really need to eat the rainbow. Like why is it enough for koalas to eat eucalyptus and pandas eat bamboo and we have to eat a bit of everything? And then sometimes you hear people talking about how important it is to get purple sweet potatoes in your diet. I mean, I've never seen a purple sweet potato in my life. So it can't be important for humans because and the only thing that is common to the whole world, to every culture, is animal products. There is no, but then I mean, the question of whether it is enough on its own still remains. But I would say that we have enough evidence, both historically, anthropologically, but also from case studies of people who are just fine.
Yep.
And I mean, I completely understand people who think it's crazy, because I used to think it was crazy too. I remember thinking like, it can't be possible, you need vitamins, right? But trying it was just night and day difference. So that in the end, I don't think anyone will be convinced completely until they try.
Good point.
But when it comes to like this myth of fruit and veggies being the best source of vitamins, I remember when I was thinking of having kid number 2, and we weren't carnivore yet. And with all the trouble that my first one had, and I was getting really worried about diet, and I was just trying to put together a diet that should meet all of the recommended daily allowances for each nutrient, vitamins, minerals, everything. And I was just looking at the mainstream information, well, mostly Wikipedia, right? Looking at amounts of how much is in each type of food. And I remember coming to the conclusion that it was not possible. I was like, how am I supposed to get enough folate, which is really important in pregnancy, for example, when the daily needs are much higher? And I was like, I would have to eat asparagus every day, and like 300-400 grams, like basically a pound of asparagus every day,
Oh my
or
gosh.
like, oh, or an avocado. It's like it was just so limited. And then I need the vitamins B as well. Okay, and then I need to eat this or that. And I was like, how am I supposed to put this together? And I remember looking at apples, and I was just like, this has nothing. I remember being so surprised. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. And I was like,
That's right.
the sugar, vitamin C, and that's it. Like, sure, there are some a little bits of other things, but it's just like, oh, 1% of your recommended daily dose. And I was like, am I supposed to eat a kilo of, or like not a kilo, but 10 kilos of, I mean, impossible. Im-
Yeah.
And a lot of these vitamins and minerals, actually the best source is meat.
Yep.
For so many of them, most of the vitamins B are just more abundant in meat than in anything else. But back then, I still couldn't fathom that I would eat 2 pounds of meat a day.
Yeah.
Like that was not something I was I was entertaining.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's crazy. Wow. I'm
But
thinking about like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, but I was just gonna say that once I came back to carnivore and as an idea, and I looked at this list of mine that I made of like all the vitamins and minerals and the best sources of them, and I was like, oh, all of this is working out now. It's like put in 2 pounds, like a kilo of meat, beef, fish, whatever. It's like it's working out. I could see like, sure, vitamin C is lower than they recommend, but it's still enough to cover for scurvy. And one could argue whether the extra is actually necessary. And if anyone is worried, there are very simple supplements. But almost everything just looked so much better on a carnivore diet on paper, which is surprising.
Yes. Yeah, it is. Well said. Yeah, I'm thinking about the 5 bananas that you were eating a day at one point and thinking like, I'm pretty sure bananas are not native to Slovakia, let alone Norway. I don't think that's where they grow. And one of the book club books that we read, I thought was quite interesting. It was written 50 years ago, The Stone Age Diet. There was a kind of difficult book to find, and one example that he gave, I don't know if it's a true story or just an example, but he gave the story of like when we started discovering vitamins, there was a demand from people like yourself, mothers that really cared about nutrients for their kids. And what if they were up north, like requesting fresh fruits and vegetables up north where stores were like, we don't have any fruits and vegetables in the 1920s, like we don't, they're not in season in February. But if there were a distributor or something there and understood that, tomatoes, for example, fresh tomatoes were going bad by the truckload in the south, if he could get them up north, he could sell them to these mothers that, again, like yourself, just wanted to provide vitamins and minerals for their kids because we were just learning how important they were. So yeah, just to think the practicality of trying to get all of the nutrients that you would need from plants is just, it's so difficult. Like you said, it would be impossible. The kilos of apples and how much quinoa you need to eat and combining it with lentils for protein or B12 or you name the nutrient. It's just so challenging. So that's really well said. I like that you explained that.
It's incredibly challenging. And I mean, it's not even taking into account all the anti-nutrients. Like you just mentioned quinoa. Oh, I remember when I once washed it a bit, like badly, not enough. I didn't wash my quinoa enough, and there were too many saponins in it. And it's basically soap. It's the same compounds that you have in soap. And my digestive system is not the most robust as it is, so adding some soap to it was not nice. And I remember being like really sick for the rest of the day, and then it was like, oh, I that was badly washed quinoa. And and I mean, I feel awful just thinking about the fact that I was giving that thing to my child in those important years when she needed as much nutrition, safe nutrition as possible.